If you've been around for 2 years, this OC might look familiar to you. This is Neith Vanderwal, and she is sort of one of my first OCs that I've created on this channel. She is a witch, and she has the most fleshed out story between all of my OCs, which is tragic to say just because they don't really have fleshed out backstories. But she is the most fleshed out. Anyways, so let's talk about her. She's undergone a lot of changes. Initially, she was supposed to be set in like the 1920s, 1940s, in that era, and witches and wizards isn't like a big, huge thing, and that means she dresses very casually, and it's sort of like turtlenecks with pants because she doesn't like skirts since she's a combat slash fighter witch person. Anyways, and like short hair, just not really in the social norms. Neither is really her family, but they live in that like era where, cars weren't really common and not a whole lot of technologies happening. Things have changed a lot. So she is still a witch. And the setting is more of a fantasy world where witches and wizards do exist, mages, but they're a bit more rare in a way, and there are kingdoms with princes and prince and kings, queens, and whatnot, and her family is sort of a part of this elite sort of task force because they're all wizards and sorcerers of sorts, and they're a part of this king's elite task force, and that means that they do all like dirty jobs, good jobs, a whole lot of things for this king, who is morbid and twisted and not great. So he also sort of created this war that sent her family out into it, and she is sort of they're not really pleased with it. It changed a whole lot for the family dynamic, especially because the previous head was power hungry, crazed type person and wanted only the best of the next generation to survive. So essentially, that costs the family tension, and only like 6 of the newest generation sort of exists in this family and are forced to sort of carry the burden that the whole family once carried, and now they have to follow this like evil kings and his orders. So yeah, Nith is the strongest out of all of her cousins. She doesn't have siblings, although her cousins have siblings. I think one of them is like a triplet, and yeah, there's like a few other things. And so she's the next head, and because the king has passed, the prince then steps into reigns. He has to learn about the Vanderwals and what they're capable of and what they do. And there's sort of like this plea bargain that happens at the end of the previous king's reign, where she will dedicate her whole life to the kingdom if he basically sets her family free type thing. Does she murder her grandfather? Probably. I mean, it could have been the war too. But he's not really the type of character who would go into war and really face conflict, He's more of a coward, one might say. Anyways, so she like makes this deal with the king and is like, I will dedicate my whole life to your kingdom and serve you if you let my cousins free. And then in turn of that, she's trying to rebuild her family. And it's a lot of hidden things. The Vanderwals themselves, after the reign of Atticus Vanderwal, they sort of part ways and split ways, so then they are more discreet and they don't get caught by the grandfather. And then on top of that, there's like little pockets of them, and they have sort of like secret meeting places that they can meet up with, and they could tell who's who in a way, even if it's a really distant family member, just because they have markings like tattoos on their bodies that represents if they are a Vanderwal, and the different things that they had mastered slash passed according to their sort of regime in a way. That's not to say like they weren't strict before, but they also didn't make, the cousins fight to the death for the top 6 places. So Nith is never number 1. Aries is wrongfully number 2. Aries is sort of like the grandfather's right-hand person, and she is second place because she's so obedient and loyal to the grandfather. But power-wise, it would be Athena, supposedly. I think Athena has a name change, though. This is how long the story was. So many things has happened. But yeah, so Nith basically swears to protect the kingdom, and that is where the new king slash prince has learned about the Vanderwals and learns about her. Is it a bit of romance? Possibly. I don't know. But for the most part, it's sort of like he has to wrap his head around the whole, like, hey, your father, sort of a shit person. And yeah, so she's like helping out with that, and then also like any conflict, so possible wars or anything that happens, she is sort of the person to go to, like an advisor of type person. Was there an arranged marriage? I don't know yet. I'm leaning towards probably, because like the king wants what's best, and she's the best. In a way, her kill count's probably a lot because she fought in the war, front line, and survived, and that's sort of where she also has a scar across her face, temporary blindness when she came back from the war. That's not really going to be touched too much upon, I guess. I could try to work it in. This whole story is just a mess. There's not really like a direction, and that's sort of one things that I learned about writing stories, is that you need a direction first before you develop characters and things like that. And yeah, so that's a mess. But in saying that, so you could also tell a bit about different characters. I don't know if I'll ever get to the other characters, but maybe that will be something one day. But essentially, so Nith dresses in pants and like more of a masculine outfit just because it's a bit more practical when it comes to combat, but she loves having like the bishop sleeves, like the very it's the shoulder is like slim and then it tapers out and then it's puffy, and the cuff is like around the wrist, so then it makes it poofy. She likes those types of sleeves. She doesn't like dresses as much because you don't want to accidentally show something when you're in combat, but she will wear it for formal events if she needs to. She keeps her hair short just because it's more practical for her, and it's less to take care of. And then on top of that, she also doesn't have a whole lot of details on her clothes that she wears, but if there are details, they're in black as well. It might just be a change in fabric type thing, but they will remain as black. Now compare that to Athena. Athena tends to wear more lighter colors, and she dresses more elegantly and sort of more feminine. She is very pretty. She goes blonde. She has gone blonde because it helps with sort of like the seducting type style that she has, and she is more of a healer, but that's not to underestimate her. Athena is really pretty though, and she ends up falling in love with someone during the war. Is he alive? The last time that I touched on her character, he died during the war, and Nith is the one that sort of consoles her and like tells her like they need to have a proper burial for this person because it's the love of your life and you should treat him with a lot of respect and put him to rest type thing. So she's there for that, and like the 4 other cousins would follow Nith to the end of the world. They're very loyal to her just because she had been the one to protect them, even though she's the younger one out of all the cousins. And yeah, so she's a protector. She's also very understanding of social cues, but also very strategic in what she does. And Athena is a seductress. She is also very socially competent and like very charming. And she has this like innocent look to her in a way. And then there is like Aries, which dresses in black and she has black hair as well. And it's sort of framed in a way that it's like Nith's but longer. That's just because Aries is sort of like wants to be like Nith, like powerful and like the next head of the family, but Nith isn't going to allow that. Anyways, and she dresses in black, but she has a lot more details on her clothes and she'll have like gold accents to it. So that makes them very like different in a way. And Aries is more arrogant and charges in blindly and doesn't control her emotions as well. And then we have the boys. The boys. Yeah, they highly respect Nith. They would lay their lives down for her. One of them, I forget his name, but he's more of a coy, very charming. I think he's the twin brother of Athena, but he's very charming, very sarcastic, witty, and he still will like respect Nith no matter what. Cronus is the brute. He's like if you take away his magic, he will still like bare fist you and just completely desecrate you in that way. And he's like this big guy, very humorous. He's blind in one eye because it got cut too badly for magic to repair, but that doesn't stop him from being a tank. And he like will do things like crush Nith in a hug and like lift her on his shoulder and whatever, like just sit her there. She's like, why? Okay. And then the final one was, I think, Cronus. These names do get changed. I'm pretty sure I will change them when they are more fleshed out characters. But he can shapeshift. He's the only one that shapeshifts, and he purposely shapeshifts into people that aren't very attractive in a way, or like stereotypically attractive, because he's like, why not? I can change into anyone. And he's sort of cynical, and he has a sense of humor, and he likes joking around and whatnot. And definitely, if he was a bit more free in growing up, a prankster in a way, but he has long hair, these like large, unsettling eyes and whatnot. Like that's the form that he chooses to take. And yeah, he's just, he's the one who sort of looks out the most for Nith, even though she doesn't need it. And he still respects her and whatnot, but he makes sure that she isn't pushing herself too far and that, you know, she needs reminders that she's not like alone and that this isn't all just on her. So yeah, that's basically like the Vanderwal cousins, talked about them. And this is Neith Vanderwal, which is by far one of my favorites, but I'm trying to like learn a bit more about character design and how to make better characters so then I can also fall in love with other characters and figure out their weaknesses and strengths and whatnot, although I have a faint hint as to what that is. But yeah, so Nith is also going to have to... Nith is going to go through a lot. I'm sorry. Oh, why do I do this to my characters? It's because I'm bad, but she doesn't die, okay? That's the bright side. I've killed off characters in a few, like, storylines. Oh, but she doesn't die. None of the main cousins are going to die. I think the worst thing that can happen is that Aries goes to prison for what she had helped out with and for an attempt of murder on Nith. And Nith sort of doesn't know if she grants her mercy or not by sending her to prison, but that's another conflict type thing to decide. But yeah, so this piece was actually very interesting. I did pull up some sort of references for it, Pinterest, very helpful, so many art references, but like, I thought it was very fitting to have her sort of hold her hand up like that and with the star burst, or the power orb or whatever being like that, because she is the head. The most attention will go to her. And then on top of that, you know, that's how much she's willing to risk, is she is basically willing to put her life down for her family and those that she cares about. And she isn't as emotionless and as heartless as people think she is. So that will be something to discover. It was also just really cool to play with lighting and color schemes. I mentioned this so many times. I'm terrible when it comes to color theory, but references help a lot, by the way. And then yeah, it was just really cool to play with something a bit different than my normal, try to play around with the background a lot. And then just light sources is tricky. On top of that, I find that I can't really put too much detail in the face because of the light source. That's just an excuse, I know, but still, um, interesting. I should have really did the face first though before adding the hand and that power orb. But you live and you learn. I can't wait to actually redraw this again in the future. Can't wait to learn more about Neith and her story. So, yeah. Thank you guys all for watching so much. I don't really want to drag this on for too much longer. So, I hope you guys all stay safe, stay hydrated, and have a wonderful day. Did I really almost forget what I end a video with? Anyways, bye.